Well, hello everyone. My name is Brian Berthoud, and this is my case study for missional churches and leadership. And we're just going to jump right in. The basis of this assignment is going to be in reference to this chart and its subsequent readings in the material this course is covered, called Practical Theology. And you can see from this diagram, there's a lot of moving pieces to this, so we are going to cover these steps 1 through 5 on how I'm interpreting them in my own life. The big takeaway item at the beginning here is understanding this is kind of a continuous process of action, reflection, action, and really the importance of coupling action with reflection so as to make less mistakes moving forward. Two major components that stood out to me in Mark Law Branson's reading on this, his essay, was this first one was the integration across academic disciplines, which is the learning, the methods, and the content of seminary academics, including biblical studies, systematic theology, church history, plus how those fields are engaged by psychology, cultural studies, philosophy, ethics, anthropology, communication, and organizational and leadership studies. The second component of this is the integration of academics with faithful living. Formation individually as Christian communities is to be continually engaged in action and reflection regarding paying attention to and participating in ongoing actions. This is embodied work that frames personal and group vocation in service of Christ's reconciling ministry to the world. So that kind of in a nutshell, those two components embody what practical theology is and what it looks like as far as moving from our own personal studies, reflections, meditations, scriptures, backgrounds, into the world, faithful living, and how that looks joining God in the community. For me, this first current praxis has a big emphasis on faith. That's why the picture is there. And then verses that stand out to me are in James chapter 5, which really just talks about the prayer of faith and how that looks. When I began this course and its subsequent engagement in practical theology, I realized my examined life is both layered with complexity and riddled with missteps. One of the most sacred and one of the most cherished dimensions to discern the will of God in my life is found through prayer. By prayerful engagement with God, I submit myself to God's authority and thus becoming more aware of God's will for my life. This is the first thing that I do in the morning and whenever else I am compelled, as the Spirit cries out, Abba, Father. These moments of deliberate prayer provide more than reflection, but the opportunity to encounter God. Coupled with my prayers is an active engagement with the Scriptures. Along with my many assignments, I am currently engrossed in the Psalms. I'm an active member of the local church where I participate in numerous programs and development groups. I'm also the director of a faith-based fitness ministry in which is a non-denominational mixture of various faith backgrounds who also enjoy fitness. In my cultural context, this is a picture of the city in which I live. It's called Imperial Beach, and it's just south of San Diego. The culture of my neighborhood is a unique blend of a small-town beach community living on the outskirts of San Diego. It just so happens that it also borders Tijuana, Mexico. There's a strong Mexican influence on the community, which according to the United States Census Bureau, 50% of the population is Hispanic. By and large, the city is accustomed to the beach life. Everyday surfers and beachgoers flock to the ocean for some rest and relaxation. In addition to this laid-back lifestyle is a strong military presence. Within 12 miles are 4 Navy installations. San Diego serves as the principal port for the Pacific Fleet. That means there's a lot of mixing of people from all over the United States who are transient by nature. I can personally relate to this because that is the reason why I moved to San Diego 8 years ago. In addition to the military is a strong Border Patrol presence. Being so close to the border, this sees a regular influx of illegal immigrants and its subsequent Border Patrol operations. Nearly every day, helicopters from the Navy and Border Patrol circle overhead. For my Christian texts and practices, since I do not have a broad church background, I sought to know more about what was happening in my life more than what I was experiencing from the local church. This led me to a Christian ministries degree at California Baptist University and then into the Master's of Divinity program at Fuller Theological Seminary. With an increasing perspective of the church, I am beginning to put words to how my heart feels. I am realizing the needs of the people are great, but the laborers are few. Within the multiple readings and meditations of the 70 being sent, Luke chapter 10, I am being challenged by the nature of discipleship in the community. Nick Warren's comments echo what I perceive in my heart, that we need to continue to resist the momentum to turn inward and keep focusing outward. From another course this quarter, I have been introduced to the idea of liberation theology, and I feel a beacon of light is shining forth from it. The fourth step is our stories. This continual movement from experience to reflection and study, and then on to new actions and experience is nothing new to me. My entire life has been in this state, closely examining my life in relation to my own actions. Since my walk of faith began, there has been one thing that remains crystal clear, that I am a sinner who, by the grace of God, breathed life into my body. With the fire of the Spirit yearning to act, I have failed to connect the dots that are right in front of me. Over the course of the last year, I have filled out applications to numerous places in the United States and in Europe. As we read about the Exodus, the exile, or the earliest churches, we can place these stories alongside our own in order to reconsider our perceptions, convictions, habits, and imaginations. Once I began to use the practical theology method to assist in the discernment for the will of God in my life, I realized there's a great need right outside my door. While taking numerous prayer walks every day, I began to notice the oppression of people within the community. The call to the neighborhood is a call to discover what God is already doing and become part of it. This picture here is the border of San Diego, really Imperial Beach and Tijuana, so that big fence thing, that is the infamous border fence. As I take some steps to further engage the community, there are a couple of thoughts at the front of my mind. Keeping in mind the work of the Spirit to prove the world wrong about sin, righteousness, and judgment, along with the ministry of reconciliation that is upon us, I pray that I will be bold in the faith, not seeking my own understanding, but the will of God. There is something more that can be nurtured with this faith-based ministry. People in this group have expressed interest in partnering with some sort of Feeding the Homeless campaign. In addition, I have also been in contact with specific internship opportunities that can participate in some sort of urban ministry. Rather than seeking experience in building up a church internally, I am seeking guidance on going into communities, especially those that are crossing social and economic boundaries. I've also recently been in contact with a pastor in Tijuana, Mexico, and I am headed across the border next week to see what God is doing. At this very moment, I feel the urgency to go, except the Spirit has been prohibiting me from moving, a lot like in the middle of the story in Acts 16. Thank you. That concludes my presentation, and I pray grace and peace upon your lives. Amen.